2016. A separate room in the Disney Channel office. Young video blogger Jake Paul signs a contract to star in the series Bizaardvark. No one could have predicted then that this smiling guy would become the center of one of the biggest scandals on social media a few years later. According to official data, the path to fame began on the Vine platform, where Jake, together with his older brother Logan, shot short comedy videos. But the investigation shows a different picture. Even then, the teenager used dubious methods to gain popularity. Former classmates recall cases of bullying that he filmed on camera. Videos where he bullies weaker students were later deleted, but copies survived in the archives of the school administration. Particular attention is drawn to the testimonies of Paul's former friends from Cleveland. According to them, already at the age of 15, he showed signs of sociopathy. He could spend hours planning revenge on those who offended him. He used personal information for blackmail. 3 cases of cyberbullying ended in suicide attempts by his victims. Police reports from that period mention systematic psychological abuse, but the cases were quickly closed due to the suspect's age. 2017 becomes a turning point. Jake creates the Team 10, a group of young bloggers living together in a mansion in Los Angeles. At first glance, it's an ordinary creative team, but the testimonies of former members reveal a horrifying picture of psychological abuse and manipulation. Financial documents from that period show a complex scheme of exploitation of young talents. The contracts signed by the members of Team 10 contain clauses about complete control over their personal lives. It was forbidden to communicate with relatives without permission. Phones were tapped. Emails were monitored. Any disobedience was subject to fines. According to the Los Angeles police, during the existence of Team 10, 47 calls were received from neighbors. Complaints included not only loud parties, but also suspicious nightly gatherings, sounds of explosions, and screams. The fire department was called 3 times due to arson on the estate grounds. In one case, a 16-year-old girl was injured, but her parents suddenly withdrew the statement after receiving a significant sum of money. 2018 brings the first serious scandals. Former Team 10 member Alyssa Violet publicly accuses Jake of emotional abuse. According to her, he created a cult-like atmosphere in the house where everyone had to obey his will unquestioningly. Other former team members talk about surveillance cameras in bedrooms and bathrooms. The video recordings were then used for blackmail. A journalistic investigation reveals that closed parties for influential Hollywood people were regularly held at the Team 10 mansion. Minors were present at these events. According to former employees, guests were offered special entertainment. 3 cases of sexual assault were hushed up with the help of expensive lawyers. Financial fraud becomes more and more obvious. Analysis shows that a significant portion of views on Paul's channel was generated through bots. According to experts, up to 40% of his audience were fake accounts. At the same time, advertisers paid for contracts based on inflated metrics. The total amount of fraud is estimated at millions of dollars. 2019 adds new dark colors to Jake Paul's portrait. Evidence emerges about underground parties at the Team 10 mansion, where underage girls were offered alcohol and drugs. Police reports mention 3 cases of overdose that were hushed up thanks to influential connections. 2 girls later went missing. During the same period, information surfaces about Paul's first attempts to enter the world of professional boxing, but not out of sports interest, but as a way to launder money. Banking documents show a series of suspicious transactions through offshore companies on the eve of his first fights. According to insiders, the results of the fights were agreed upon in advance with bookmakers. Most interestingly, all these scandals only increased his popularity. Jake Paul turned toxicity into a brand. Each new scandal brought new subscribers and advertising contracts. According to Forbes, by the end of 2019, his fortune was estimated at $11.5 million. Money earned through manipulation, deception, and exploitation of young talent. But this was just the beginning. The real problems began when he decided to go beyond YouTube and enter the world of big business and professional sports. A world where his usual methods of manipulation and deception could lead to much more serious consequences. 2020. The pandemic changes the world, but for Jake Paul, it becomes an opportunity to launch the biggest scam of his career. In the midst of the lockdown, he announces the creation of the Financial Freedom Movement online course. Price, $20 per month. Promise, to teach teenagers to earn millions without leaving home. The investigation shows that the course was created using stolen materials from other business coaches. Moreover, the bulk of the unique content turned out to be copied from free sources on the internet. In 3 months, the project collected more than $2 million from gullible teenagers. The money was immediately withdrawn through a network of offshore companies. But this was just the beginning. In July 2020, the FBI conducts a raid on Paul's mansion in Calabasas. The official reason is an investigation into mass riots at a shopping mall. But insider sources claim that the real purpose was to seize documents related to financial fraud. According to the investigation, Paul created a complex money laundering scheme through cryptocurrencies. He advertised junk tokens to his young audience, having bought them for next to nothing beforehand. After a sharp increase in price due to the influx of investors, he secretly sold his assets, leaving fans with nothing. This scheme, known as pump and dump, brought him about $10 million. Particular attention is drawn to the Ding Doink project, a cryptocurrency that Paul actively promoted in 2021. The investigation revealed that he was the secret owner of 100% of the tokens at launch. After an aggressive advertising campaign, the price increased by 7,000%, and Paul sold his stake, collapsing the market. Thousands of teenagers lost their savings. In parallel, the NFT scheme evolved. Paul launched a digital art collection called Pokémon Cards, using copyrighted images. The project raised $4 million in 24 hours. Buyers never received the promised tokens, and the project website disappeared after a week. 2022 brings new revelations. Journalists find evidence that Paul used his boxing career to launder money. Before each fight, a network of fake accounts was created for betting. Bookmakers recorded suspicious activity, but the cases were hushed up. Bank documents show that millions of dollars from suspicious sources passed through Paul's accounts. The money was converted into cryptocurrency, passed through dozens of wallets, and returned as legal income from advertising and merchandise sales. The most scandalous project becomes the Boxing Fund, an investment scheme where Paul offered fans to invest in his boxing career. According to the documents, the funds raised were supposed to go towards training and organizing fights. In reality, the money was immediately withdrawn through front companies in Belize and the Cayman Islands. 2023. The U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission begins an investigation into Paul's activities. His crypto projects, investment schemes, and suspicious financial transactions come under scrutiny. But the most interesting things happen behind the scenes of this investigation. Information appears about Paul's connections with organized crime. Financial analysts find transfers to accounts associated with known criminal structures. People with criminal pasts who are responsible for solving problems appear in his entourage. Particular attention is drawn to a series of suspicious incidents. A journalist investigating Paul's crypto schemes gets into an accident. A former employee who threatened to reveal details of financial fraud suddenly recants his words after a visit from unknown persons. A server with evidence of fraud burns down during a mysterious fire. And now, when the fight with Mike Tyson has been announced, financial experts are sounding the alarm. Suspicious activity has already been recorded on betting sites. New offshore companies are being created, and offers to sell insider information about the outcome of the upcoming fight are appearing on the dark web. How many more secrets does Jake Paul's financial empire hide? And will the fight with Tyson become his biggest scam? 2020. A video appears on YouTube from former Team 10 member Justine Paradise. With tears in her eyes, the girl talks about sexual harassment by Jake Paul. But this video is just the beginning of an avalanche of revelations that shock even the blogger's most devoted fans. According to police reports, between 2017 and 2020, law enforcement agencies received 14 statements about sexual harassment related to the Team 10 mansion. 9 of them were withdrawn after receiving significant sums of money. 3 cases mysteriously disappeared from the police archive. 2 more statements remained without consideration due to lack of evidence. Former employees of the mansion talk about systematic abuse of young girls who came to auditions for Team 10. They were drugged, filmed in compromising videos, and then blackmailed. According to the guards, there was a special safe with hard drives where these recordings were kept. Particular attention is drawn to the story of the disappearance of 19-year-old model Emily Redford. She was last seen at a party at Paul's mansion in August 2019. A few days before her disappearance, she told friends about terrible things she had witnessed. Her phone was last recorded in the area of the Mojave Desert. The police investigation suddenly stops after a call from influential people. 2021 brings new revelations. Fragments of recordings from the mansion surveillance cameras leak onto the web. The videos show scenes of violence, underage substance abuse, and other illegal activities. Within 24 hours, all copies of the recordings disappear from the internet, and the accounts that distributed them are blocked. Investigators find evidence of the existence of underground rooms under the mansion, not indicated on the building plans. According to the builders, these rooms were equipped with soundproofing and video surveillance systems. Paul's official version is that they are studios for filming, but former team members talk about screams in the middle of the night and strange rituals. In May 2021, information surfaces about Paul's connections with an international human trafficking network. A journalistic investigation reveals that some castings for Team 10 were a cover for the selection of girls who were then taken abroad. 3 such cases are documented, but the cases never went to trial. Financial documents show regular payments of large sums in cash to PR consultants. According to insiders, this money went to bribe witnesses and solve problems with law enforcement agencies. One of these consultants previously worked for a well-known Los Angeles crime family. 2022. A series of FBI raids take place at Paul's mansion. The official reason is suspicion of weapons possession, but agents confiscate dozens of hard drives and documents related to completely different crimes. A week later, the lead agent in the case unexpectedly resigns and moves abroad. In parallel, details emerge about psychological manipulation in Team 10. According to former team members, Paul used methods similar to the practices of destructive cults. Isolation from family, control over personal life, collective punishments. All this was part of the control system. Particularly chilling are the testimonies about the punishment room, a room in the basement of the mansion where Paul conducted educational conversations with disobedient team members. 3 former Team 10 members are still undergoing psychological rehabilitation after what they experienced there. 2023. New victims appear. Now from the boxing world. 2 girls from the cheerleading squad accuse Paul of attempted rape before one of the fights. The case does not go to trial. Both plaintiffs suddenly leave the country after receiving compensation for moral damage. The most shocking is the confession of a former bodyguard about the existence of an entire system for collecting compromising material. According to him, Paul has a dossier on everyone who has ever worked with him. Videos, audio recordings, personal correspondence. All this is kept as insurance in case someone wants to tell the truth. And now, as the fight with Mike Tyson approaches, new testimonies begin to leak out. Former sparring partners talk about unfair training methods. Coaches talk about the use of banned substances. and offers to sell shocking compromising material on Jake Paul are appearing on the dark web. January 17, 2020. Las Vegas. Jake Paul announces his first professional boxing match. But the investigation shows that long before this moment, he was already involved in underground fights where huge sums of illegal bets were circulating. According to insiders from bookmakers, as early as 2019, Paul secretly organized fights in closed clubs in Los Angeles. The fights were held without a license, often using fake fighters. Bets were accepted in cash, with sums reaching $1 million per night. 5 such fights ended with serious injuries to the participants, and 1 fighter went missing. Paul's first official fight against Eneson Gibb raises suspicions among experts. A few hours before the match, millions of dollars are deposited into offshore company accounts associated with Paul. Bookmakers record anomalous bets on Paul's victory in the first round. Later, information emerges that the opponent received a bonus of $500,000 for the right result. 2021 becomes the year of the biggest scams. The fight with Ben Askren is accompanied by unprecedented activity on betting sites. According to Financial Intelligence, about $30 million were bet on Paul's victory through fake accounts. Experts note Askren's strange behavior during the fight. He falls from a punch that clearly did not have a knockout force. Particular attention is drawn to Paul's training camps. According to former sparring partners, banned substances were regularly used there. Medical documents that have leaked to the press show anomalous changes in Paul's blood tests. 3 laboratories that conducted the tests suddenly close after visits from unknown persons. The investigation reveals the connections of Paul's team with Mexican drug cartels. His private plane regularly flies to Mexico, officially for training camps. But radars record landings in areas known for the production of steroids and other banned substances. 3 members of his team were previously convicted of drug smuggling. 2022 brings new revelations. During the preparation for the fight with Tyron Woodley, a series of strange incidents occurs in Paul's training camp. 2 sparring partners are hospitalized with suspected poisoning. In the blood of one of them, traces of substances used for manipulating doping test results are found. Financial documents show a complex money laundering scheme through boxing matches. A network of front companies is created, supposedly engaged in organizing fights and selling tickets. In reality, millions of dollars from illegal bets and sales of banned substances pass through these firms. Of particular interest is Paul's role in underground bare-knuckle fights. According to the FBI, he was involved in organizing illegal tournaments where non-professional fighters fought. Bets were accepted in cryptocurrency, and fights often ended in serious injuries. 3 such tournaments were held in the basements of Las Vegas casinos, and 1 in an abandoned warehouse in Los Angeles. 2023 becomes the year of the biggest scandal. A former member of Paul's team leaks documents to the press proving systematic fraud with fight results. A complex scheme of bribing judges, manipulating gloves, and using banned substances is revealed. According to this data, 5 of Paul's fights were completely staged. Particular attention is drawn to the system of working with bookmakers. A few days before each fight, hundreds of fake accounts were created for betting. The money passed through cryptocurrency wallets, then was converted into cash through underground exchangers. According to experts, each fight laundered from $10 to $15 million in this way. During the same period, information emerges about Paul's ties to organized crime. People previously convicted of racketeering and extortion appear in his entourage. 3 former members of mafia clans become consultants for his boxing team. According to the police, they are responsible for solving problems with uncooperative opponents. The most shocking revelation is the exposure of the system of intimidation of opponents. Before each fight, Paul's opponents are subjected to psychological pressure. They receive threats, their family members are followed, and there are incidents with their property. Two fighters refuse matches after visits from representatives of Paul's team. In parallel, a doping scandal develops. Laboratory tests reveal traces of experimental drugs in Paul's samples that are not detected by standard tests. 3 employees of the anti-doping service suddenly quit after trying to conduct an investigation. Their computers are hacked and data is destroyed. And now, when the fight with Mike Tyson has been announced, experts are sounding the alarm. The creation of new offshore companies for accepting bets has already been recorded. New suspicious characters with criminal pasts are appearing in Paul's entourage, and people known for their ties to manufacturers of banned substances have been spotted in his training camp. October 2024. Preparations for the biggest fight in Jake Paul's career enter an active phase. But behind the scenes of this event, a much more interesting story is unfolding. According to Financial Intelligence, over the past 3 months, more than $50 million have passed through offshore companies associated with Paul. Particular attention is drawn to a series of suspicious cryptocurrency transactions. In a week, more than 1,000 new wallets are created, through which huge sums begin to pass. Experts note the similarity of this scheme to Paul's previous scams around boxing matches. Strange things are happening in Paul's training camp. According to insiders, he hardly conducts any sparring sessions. Instead, he regularly meets with suspicious persons known for their ties to manufacturers of banned substances. 3 times his private plane flies to Mexico, returning with sports equipment. A new investigation reveals that Paul has created a network of front companies to work with bookmakers. Through these firms, a series of large bets are planned to be placed on the eve of the fight. According to preliminary estimates, the total amount may exceed $100 million. In parallel, information emerges about attempts to pressure Tyson's team. 3 members of his coaching staff report being followed and threatened. One of Tyson's sparring partners is hospitalized after an attack by unknown persons. Police find evidence of the involvement of people from Paul's entourage. Particular attention is drawn to Paul's new company, Victory Labs. Officially, it is engaged in the production of sports nutrition, but the investigation shows that components for the production of experimental stimulants are purchased through this firm. 3 former employees of Mexican drug cartels work as consultants in this company. 2 months before the fight, a mysterious psychological preparation specialist appears on Paul's team. According to the FBI, this person was previously involved in organizing fixed matches in professional sports. Secret meetings with representatives of bookmakers take place in his hotel room. October 2024 brings new revelations. Documents leak onto the web indicating Paul's attempts to organize a large-scale fraud around the upcoming fight. The plan includes manipulations with gloves, bribing judges, and using banned substances. The budget for this operation is estimated at $30 million. Law enforcement agencies record increased activity of criminal structures around the upcoming fight. Well-known representatives of the criminal world arrive in Las Vegas. Large sums of cash are being prepared for illegal bets. 3 underground bookmakers open special lines to accept special bets. Particular alarm is caused by the appearance in Paul's entourage of people associated with the production of synthetic drugs. According to the DEA, batches of new experimental stimulants regularly appear in his training camp. 2 employees of the anti-doping service suddenly take a vacation after trying to conduct an unscheduled check. Medical experts who analyze the latest videos of Paul's training note signs of the use of powerful psychotropic substances. His behavior is becoming increasingly inadequate. At press conferences, he talks about secret forces and supernatural abilities. 3 psychiatrists independently diagnose signs of severe psychosis. A week before the fight, information emerges about secret negotiations between Paul's representatives and the criminal authorities of Las Vegas. The meetings discuss the details of organizing the right result of the fight. The amounts of bribes for various participants in the process reach millions of dollars. All this creates an atmosphere of tense anticipation around the upcoming fight. Experts talk about an unprecedented level of corruption and manipulation. Law enforcement agencies are preparing a special operation, and bookmakers record strange fluctuations in odds. And now, when only a few days remain until November 15th, the main question arises. Will this fight become the apogee of Jake Paul's fraudulent career? Will law enforcement agencies be able to prevent the largest scam in the history of boxing? And what price will have to be paid for the truth? Perhaps we will learn the answers to these questions soon. But one thing can be said for sure. The story of Jake Paul is not just the story of a successful blogger who became a boxer. This is a story about how modern technologies and social networks can create the perfect cover for the biggest scams of our time. The story of Jake Paul is not just a story about one blogger who turned into a boxer. It is a warning for an entire generation that has grown up in the era of social networks, where the line between reality and fiction is becoming thinner. Starting from 2016, when the young video blogger signed his first contract with Disney Channel, to the fight with Mike Tyson in 2024, we see the evolution of not just a scammer, but an entire system of manipulation that has become possible thanks to new technologies and the gullibility of a young audience. According to social media researchers, over 70% of teenagers consider influencers a more reliable source of information than traditional media. It is this blind trust that has allowed Paul and other bloggers to create financial pyramids, cryptocurrency scams, and other fraudulent schemes that have brought them millions while ruining their fans. Particular attention is drawn to the fact that most of the victims of Paul's fraudulent schemes are teenagers and young people aged 13 to 21. According to financial experts, the total losses of his audience from various scams exceed $200 million. And these are only the cases that have become known. Psychologists note a dangerous trend. Modern social networks create the illusion of closeness with idols. Teenagers believe that bloggers they watch every day cannot deceive them. They perceive advertising posts as friendly advice and calls to invest as caring about their future. Law enforcement agencies sound the alarm. Over the past 5 years, the number of financial crimes using social networks has increased by 400%. At the same time, it is becoming more and more difficult to solve such crimes. Scammers use cryptocurrencies, offshore companies, and other methods of hiding funds. The story of Paul's boxing career shows how easy it is to manipulate public opinion. Millions of fans sincerely believe that a blogger suddenly became a professional boxer. They did not see or did not want to see obvious signs of staged fights, fixed matches, and financial scams. Particularly alarming is that Paul's scheme has become a kind of template for other influencers. Today, dozens of bloggers are trying to repeat his path, creating their own financial pyramids, one-day cryptocurrencies, and other fraudulent projects. Cybersecurity experts warn, we are on the verge of a new era of financial crimes. Social networks give scammers unprecedented opportunities for manipulation. They can create fake personalities, falsify achievements, and hide criminal schemes behind a beautiful picture on Instagram. The fact alone is worth something that most of Paul's support team on social networks consisted of bots and paid accounts. According to analysts, up to 60% of his subscribers were fake, but this did not prevent him from selling advertising for million-dollar contracts. Even more dangerous is the influence of people like Paul on the psyche of the young generation. They create toxic behavior patterns where deception and manipulation are presented as the norm, and quick enrichment at any cost becomes the main goal in life. The story of underground fights and ties to the criminal world shows how thin the line is between virtual popularity and real crime. Social networks are becoming the perfect cover for money laundering, trafficking in banned substances, and other illegal activities. And now, as the fight with Mike Tyson approaches, we see the final act of this drama. All signs indicate that this will not just be a boxing match, but another grand scam that could become the biggest in the history of sports. But the main lesson we must learn from the story of Jake Paul is not only about him personally. This is a lesson about how easy it is in the modern world to create the illusion of success, wealth, and fame. How social networks can turn from a communication tool into a weapon of mass deception. Future generations will have to learn to distinguish truth from falsehood in a world where everyone can create their own reality with a few clicks. They must understand that the number of followers does not equal honesty, and loud statements on social networks often hide dark secrets. And perhaps, when the dust settles after the fight with Tyson and new revelations surface, we will finally begin a serious conversation about the responsibility of influencers, the need to regulate social networks, and the protection of the young generation from modern digital scammers.